Okay, hey everybody. Welcome back to Trouble with Missy and Thor, and we have a really
Hi.
interesting. Yeah, this is very interesting. It looks like there's angels above us looking down because we have these light flickers.
Yes.
I don't know. We kind of screwed up on the lights tonight, so yeah, that's pretty weird. Well, there's nothing we can do about that. So just pretend that there's like angels above us looking down because we have these like weird lights that are. We're in Apollo piano still, and they have these lights, and we have the
Yeah, we're actually down on the showroom right now
yeah.
amongst many pianos, which is like our dream.
And actually, let me adjust this so they can see.
There a little bit more. There we go. Okay.
Is that better?
Wonderful. Yes,
Yeah,
that's great.
because now you can kind of see the piano behind me a little bit. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah, so we are at Apollo Piano. We are on the actual would they call it a showroom floor? Is that what they would call
Yes,
it?
that's what they call it.
Kind of like a car dealership, but for piano. So and we're very excited because we're still at Apollo Piano, same place, just a different place in the building. And we have Missy here, and tonight is very special because we have a guest speaker whose name is Nolan Shaheed. And Melissa is going to introduce him very briefly, but I just wanted to say
Yes.
welcome and make sure at some point to stop by Apollo Music and Arts in Chico. I just realized I had my phone here again. Did that the last time too. And make sure and stop by and check out the pianos they have here. They're really nice, and you can talk to the staff who are very friendly, and you talk to Vince Chambers, who's the owner. But yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Melissa. She's going to
Okay.
introduce Nolan, and we're just going to go from there. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, I have Nolan Shaheed on the phone here, and he, in my opinion, is just amazing, legendary. And he has been in music for quite some time, and he's worked with some amazing people. I don't know if you knew this, Thor, but he used to be Marvin Gaye's like former manager. He has
Yeah.
performed with artists such as Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross, and Phil Collins. But without, oh, and we'll go on to his other accomplishments later because this guy
Just
is
an
amazing.
athlete, no big deal.
Yeah,
But
just an
yeah.
amazing athlete. But without further ado, Nolan, you are here speaking to our live captive audience on YouTube. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day and I feel beautiful.
Good.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know you have a pretty busy recording schedule, but we wanted to ask you a few questions about what you do in music. And, we have a lot of music enthusiasts who listen to our podcasts. So, without further ado, Thor here is going to
I'm
go.
asking the first one.
Yeah, you're going to be asking the first question to Nolan. So, here you go.
So I'm going to try to read Melissa's handwriting, which is, no, just kidding. It's very flowery. It's got like it looks like something from like I don't know, a girl like writing a love note or something. Anyway, okay. So Nolan, the first question is, how did you get started as a studio musician, and what introduced you to this profession?
Well, it started with my trumpet teacher. I started playing the trumpet when I was 12 years old, and I just loved it. Before then, I played the violin, and I wasn't that good of a violinist. And I guess because I just didn't love the instrument. And then I heard a trumpet on the radio or television or something, and I fell in love with the sound. And so I asked my parents if they would give me a trumpet, and they said yes. And they bought me a trumpet. I started practicing and practicing, and then I got good enough so that it was expected of me to start taking private lessons. And so I started taking lessons from a guy named Bob Riffholler in Pasadena, California, and he was the greatest. He was just the greatest. And I started getting better and better. And first thing I knew, I was the best in the band, and then I was the best in the band in the orchestra. Then I was the best in the city. Then I was at least one of the best in Southern California, and I got to be pretty good. And I remember at that time um, asking my trumpet teacher um, which direction in music should I go? Because he was a great teacher. He didn't just teach me to play jazz or teach me to play classical. He was just a trumpet teacher. He taught me to play it all and to play it all well. And so He says, you know, Nolan, the best musicians in the world are studio musicians. And
Oh,
so I said,
yeah.
well, what's a studio musician? He says, well, studio musician is what you hear when you listen to radio or television or the movies. Those are all studio musicians. He says it's very demanding because they walk into the studio and they sit down, someone passes out music, and they have to play it perfectly the first time. And then they record it, and
Yeah.
then they get paid, and they're the highest paid musicians. And so
Wow.
I said, wow, that's what I want to be. I want to be your highest paid musician.
That makes
Wow,
sense,
Nolan,
yeah.
that's amazing.
Well, I imagine, I mean, there's gotta be a lot of pressure if you know that you're being recorded and having to play an instrument and having to play it the way you rehearsed it and knowing that it's gonna be live if you're doing, like, a radio or television or something like that. I imagine that's a lot of pressure.
There is a lot of pressure, but it's a funny thing. When I was in high school, I was in the All Southern California Honor Orchestra, and I thought, well, that's a pretty big deal. It looks good on the resume. I even played a solo. I played the Brandenburg Concerto. I played it
Wow.
on piccolo trumpet. So that's a pretty good, thing for your resume. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. And then I went into college, and I was like, the best in the state, and I was doing pretty good. Now, here's the censure about this is when I first got my opportunity to play in the studios, I found out that everybody's resume was at least as good as mine. I mean, everybody was the best, you know. And I mean, everybody was great. I mean, these are some of the best musicians in the world. So there's pressure, but if you're really prepared
Mhm.
and if you really enjoy what you're doing, the pressure really becomes not so much pressure. You're on your toes, but you want to do well,
Yeah.
and you're excited about being able to play music written by the best writers and being able to interpret it and being able to play it perfectly the first time. So it's pressure, but you don't feel pressured. You feel excited.
Mhm.
And every day you're in a different studio. You might go to CBS in the morning and NBC in the afternoon, or maybe
Wow.
you go to Warner Brothers, then you go to Capitol Records, and you know,
Yeah.
and and every time you go in, you don't know what to expect. You don't know what artist it's going to be. A lot of times you don't even know what television show. You just show up, and then they put the music out and you play it, and you challenge yourself. You say, I'm not going to make any mistakes. If anyone has to stop the tape for anyone, it's not going to be for me. I'm going to play my part, and I'm going to play
Exactly, yeah.
perfectly. But
Yeah.
everyone had the same attitude. Everyone was great.
Yeah.
And I had met in the studio some of the people that I had idolized, for a long time. And there they were sitting right next to me or across the room from me. And so it was great. It was pressure, but it was more fun than
Mhm.
anything.
So it sounds like it's more, having that, accountability is maybe more motivating even just to play better.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
Wow, well, this must run into our next question here because, um, did you have any, like,
tapping your mic.
inspirations? Yeah, it's
You're
fine.
blocking
Did
it.
you I know I'm blocking it with the phone. Back and forth. So Nolan, did you have any, like, any, particular musician or band who inspired you growing up?
Well, yes, growing up, I I was interested in the LA Phil because you would go out and you see the LA Philharmonic and you say, "Wow, man, this is great music," and
Yes.
I really liked classical music because at the time, in the '60s, in the early '60s, when I started playing, they wouldn't allow jazz or any other type of music to be played in the school system in Pasadena, California. So I was really interested in pursuing a classical career. Now the thing is that it took me a long time before I realized, as a little young black kid, that it took me a long time to realize that when I went out to see the field, I didn't see anyone in the field, who looked like me, and it took me a long time to realize that no matter how great I get, I'm not going to be able to be up there to pursue what I really wanted.
Yes.
And then a friend of mine, his name is Ty Newcomb. He was a little white guy who was my age and by my height and my weight. He was like the like my friend, and he says, "Hey, baby, do you know anything about jazz?" And I said, "No." And see, Ty was like real hip because Ty knew everything.
Wow.
And Ty says, "Man, you got to check out some jazz, baby. You got to check out some Clifford Brown." And so at that time, you can go to the library and you can check out records,
Oh.
as books. So he says, go to the library in Altadena and check out some Clifford Brown albums. So I went to the library and I tried to find Clifford Brown, and I couldn't find any Clifford Brown. But I found this one trumpet player who looked like crazily weird. This guy puffs his cheeks way out when he played, and
Yeah.
his horn was bent up like it was like really distorted. He wore horn rimmed glasses and a beret, and he looked weird. So I and he had a weird name. His name was Dizzy. So I checked out an album by this guy named Dizzy Gillespie, and I went home and I played it, and it blew my mind.
Mm.
What did you say his name
They,
was? Gizzy?
yeah, Dizzy Gillespie.
Oh, Dizzy.
Uh-huh.
Wow,
And I
that's cool.
couldn't believe that the trumpet could play that, and that was my introduction to jazz. And
Wow.
it was like, wow, this is the music of my people. And I love
Mm.
it. I love it. And then I became like engrossed. I bought every album in Pasadena uh, that Dizzy played on. You
Oh
know,
my goodness.
I would go from record store to record store and I would find Dizzy Gillespie albums. And I had hundreds of them. And I was crazy about Dizzy Gillespie and Count Basie. And I loved Count Basie's band. So I was really turned on to the big band of
Mhm.
Count Basie and the combo work of a Dizzy Gillespie. And then uh, in my early 20s, I was able to play in the Count Basie Orchestra. And
Wow.
at one time, there was a guest artist, and it was Dizzy Gillespie. So I was able to meet Dizzy, go up
Oh
to his
my
room.
goodness.
It was one of the greatest thrills I ever had in my life was to meet Dizzy Gillespie face to face and to be playing in the Count Basie Orchestra. It
Wow.
was a great life.
So Nolan, it sounds like, I mean, I think this is true with any great musician because clearly you are a very experienced and a fantastic musician, and I think every fantastic musician has a lot of influences, and
Yeah,
just all the people that you mentioned are obviously people that influenced you, and I think that's what makes you who you are and makes you as successful as you are. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. So
thank you.
um, so we have another question.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Now I gotta grab the the cheat sheet.
The notes.
So, what is the most rewarding part of about your job?
Ah, music. Um, I guess the most rewarding part is that I have been able to do, well, personally, the most rewarding part is that I've been able to realize every dream I've ever had.
Mm.
When I was coming up and I started playing the trumpet, I dreamt about playing with Motown artists. And I played with, I guess, some of the greatest Motown artists ever in Motown. Because that was a big thing, back in the 60s. And then, to play with Duke Ellington and to play with Count Basie and to play with all the great jazz people. It was great. I had all these dream songs coming up, and I worked hard. I worked really hard trying to perfect my craft, and I was able to realize my dreams. I just wish that I would have been able to appreciate that. Back in the day, I worked really, really, really hard
Mhm.
practicing. When I was in high school, I used to practice 8 hours a day, and I practiced really hard. And then when I became um, popular in terms of all the contractors knew who I was, and they would call me up. I
Mm.
It was just a business for me. I enjoyed playing the music, but I didn't really appreciate how great of a environment I was in. It was like I'm on the road now with Diana Ross. We played in front of queens and
Wow.
princesses, and I played at the Royal Albert Hall, and I mean, we traveled the world. I was with Stevie Wonder. We went all over the world and kind of based. I mean, it was just great. But at the time, it was like just a gig. It's
Mhm.
like what I do. You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to sit back and say, "Wow, here I am." At the Louvre in Paris, and I'm doing things that rich people do, but I'm doing it because I'm a musician.
Well, you
Wow.
probably do it because you love it,
Yeah,
I
I'm eating
imagine.
in the best restaurants. I'm staying in the best hotels, places
Wow.
where rich people
Oh,
stay and
wow.
rich people eat. And I'm not rich. I'm just, part of a great aggregation that is able to do this. So I didn't really appreciate at the time the magnitude of experiences that I was having at a very, very early age.
So, did you wanna comment on that, Missy, or before you go to the next?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, no,
But you gotta
I
talk into the mic because the
yeah, I
phone's
know.
blocking.
Um,
Okay.
well, Nolan, that's amazing. Yeah, because as musicians, we come across these experiences, right? And
Yeah,
it's like we're just it's like we're in the moment, and it's like really hard to digest what's going on around us because there's so many things going on. But when it
yeah,
happens, it's like what just happened. So yeah, I just, I've had some experiences as a musician. They weren't probably as grand as yours, but still there were some very fine moments, and I do kind of relate what you're talking about there. But yeah, well, that's just amazing. I'm just the people that you've worked with is just it's it's really cool. It really
yeah.
is. Oh my gosh. So that leads me into our next question. And how would you describe your creative process when you were composing and or recording in your studio? And I know this one came directly from Thor here because he's a
Oh,
composer at heart and he just loves composing.
Nowhere near your caliber, though, Nolan.
But yes, it is something that we would like to learn from you and hear about that process and which you create.
okay, great. I am very fortunate in that department, and that a little background short. When I was playing the trumpet in high school, my trumpet teacher was very, very good to me. And at one point, I was losing my chops. I wasn't playing the high notes as high as I used to, and I wasn't able to endure as long as I had been doing. And
Mhm.
I told my trumpet teacher, I said, I'm not hitting those high notes, and my endurance isn't as great as it used to be. He said, when was it good? And I said, well, actually, about 7 months ago. He says, well, let me think. And he paced back and forth, and he took a draw on his pipe. He says, about that time you were running track, weren't you? And I said, yeah. He
Mm.
probably it. He says,
Yeah.
when you're running track, you're breathing properly, your lungs are expanding, you're getting that whole process happening, and it works good for the trumpet. And he says, if you were to run, you would probably get back to playing the trumpet. So I started running. And sure enough, my trumpet playing got better. Then I
Oh.
went out for cross country, and my trumpet playing got even better. And then I found out that the more I ran, the harder I ran, and the faster I ran, I found out that the trumpet playing was better and better. And at this particular time in my life, it was all about the trumpet. It was all about the trumpet. So bringing it up to current days, now I still run. I run religiously. I run every day. I run, you know, maybe 8 to 10 miles a day, and I do it at a fast pace. And I do it because I do my best thinking while I'm running. If I have to write an arrangement, and I'm on an 8 mile run, The first mile, I'm just warming up and I'm just thinking about whatever. But all of a sudden, the melody comes to my head at about mile two. And then by mile three, I start to develop this. It just kind of comes, you know,
Yes.
and I start to develop it. And by the fourth mile, I usually have it pretty much in my head, and now I'm actually singing the notes.
Wow.
Mm.
So by the time I get back home, I have the melody and I have the notes in my head, and I can see it in my head. All I do is write it down.
So
I got,
basically, so let me get this straight. So you're basically composing while you're running in a way?
yeah, exactly. I'm
Wow.
composing while I'm running. Uh-huh.
I
And I
should try
find that
doing
the
that.
more pressure I'm under, the easier it is for me to compose.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering too, because, and I don't know if this is part of it, because I have to be honest, I haven't been running lately. I exercise sometimes, but I used to run a little bit, but I never wrote a song while I was jogging. And that's
Oh,
just,
okay.
but I imagine like is it part of it is it the rhythm of the footsteps while you're running that
You
helps?
know something? A lot of it has to do with the rhythm of footsteps.
Okay. I was wondering
For
that. Yeah.
instance, if I'm writing and I have to write a slow song, but I feel really good, I have a little conflict there
Yeah.
because my mind is going one way, but my feet are going the other way.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and a lot of times I decide to go, if I'm listening to um, um, a nice piece of music,
Mhm.
Scheherazade. Da, da,
Mhm.
da, 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 da. And then I try to go out and run, and I want to run really fast, but I keep hearing that middle movement in my head, and it's a slow movement.
Mhm.
So you got to
And it
slow
makes
down
it
your pace.
difficult. Yeah, it makes it difficult to run because I kind of want to run in tempo with that.
Yes.
Then I got to get to the other part of Scheherazade. Da 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 da. Then I can run.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna have to try this. I've never tried thinking of a song while I'm
You
running, and
think you might be able to get to a mile,
uh,
Thor?
well, I think I can get to a mile, but I don't know if I can write a song while I'm running. But I'm gonna try it now that he's
Yeah,
talking about it.
yeah.
That's
For me, it
interesting.
works perfectly, perfectly every
Wow, I'm gonna try
time.
that out. Oh, so okay, so I think we have two more.
Yes.
Missy, I think you're next, right? Yeah.
Am I? No, I just asked the last question.
Oh, you
It's
did?
you're
Oh,
on.
so I'm on.
You're number 5.
And I wasn't even prepared. Okay, I'm number five. What advice would you give to people, old or young, who are thinking about going into the music industry?
Ah, okay. The music industry is very, very broad. It's
Yeah.
very broad,
Mhm.
and there's the music business. There's being a musical artist. There's being behind the scenes. Like a studio engineer, or a contractor, or a writer, or a producer, or an arranger.
Mm.
And all of that is part of the music industry. But most people, I think, at least these days, they want to be um, an artist, a musical artist.
That's
Like
right. A recording
they,
artist. Yes.
yeah, they want to be like Frank Sinatra, or they want to be like Beyonce, or something like that. If you're into that, then the first thing that you have to realize is that unless you can do it on your own, then you are a commodity. And a commodity means that your only value is what somebody can make off of you. So you might be a millionaire, but someone is a multimillionaire over you, you know,
Mhm.
and but you make kind of trickles down. So, and as long as you remember that, you'll do great. When you don't remember that, then you'll start to decline because being a commodity means that your value is what how valuable you are to the record company. Okay. Now, if you want to be um, um, a musician and be behind the scenes and just play music and for your own enjoyment, then that is a great thing. I think everyone, and I mean everyone, should know something about music. Everyone should know how to play a little piano or a little
Yeah.
clarinet or a trumpet or a saxophone or whatever. I think everyone should be able to play a musical instrument because it's like learning a language.
Yeah, definitely.
It's good for your mind, and it's just good for your communication, and it allows you to be more more um, uh, how should I put it? When you play music, you're usually never hardly ever playing just for yourself,
Right.
and allows
Yes.
you to be very cool with other people
Yeah,
because
yeah, you're
uh,
right. I mean, there is a
it's
very
like
social component
yeah,
to it.
like being in politics.
Yeah.
You play the drums, but you can't get a gig just playing the drums by yourself. You have to have someone else out in front of you.
Yeah.
You play the trumpet, but you can't play a gig just playing the trumpet. You have to
Mhm.
have saxophone and drums and piano. So it makes you appreciate others, and it makes you aware of the importance of others and how others can make you look good and how you can make others look good. So I think everyone should play music because if nothing more than just that, it brings people together. I can play jazz. I can go to Czechoslovakia, way out in some rural city somewhere out in the sticks, and I can not know the language, not know anybody. I can bring my trumpet. I can start playing my trumpet. A crowd will gather. Maybe somebody who plays the bass will come. Maybe somebody who plays the piano will come. Maybe someone who plays whatever instrument will come. I can start playing a
Mm.
blues in
Yeah.
B flat, and all of us will be on the same page.
Yeah.
All of us. And chances are, if I play a popular song, everyone will know the song, and we will all know how to play, and we will get along, and we will appreciate each other for just musicianship. Period.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
true.
Period.
Well, and there's a lot of, I mean, I've played in a couple of bands myself and nothing real big like touring the world or anything, but there's a lot of communication when you're playing with other people, like the
Yeah,
ensemble.
yeah.
Yes.
Because you're
I
not
like
just
communication.
you're communicating through the music and not with words, just by what you're playing, and that's what's fun
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. And that communication is a spiritual communication. So, you cannot play with someone and make good music without getting somewhat spiritually involved in that person. And I don't mean spiritual like, like Christian, Muslim, Jewish. No, I mean spiritual as in you have to know that person on a different level, a higher level, to be able to make really great music with that person. And that's what really brings people together.
Yeah,
That's what brings people together.
definitely, I agree.
Because you might not like a person's religion or a person's whatever, but man, you might be crazy about the way he plays that trombone.
That's true.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, you could have a Christian, Muslim, and a Jew playing in a band together. I think that would be a really good.
Happens all the time. I
Yes.
can't remember. I can't remember being in a band where there wasn't Christians, Muslims, and Jews.
Yeah.
I mean, you're always playing with, and religion hardly ever comes up unless somebody
Yeah.
makes a joke about religion, and
Yeah.
Yeah, that
everybody gets it, and it's not offensive because everybody is into what we're into.
yeah, that's that is so the truth, Nolan, because like, even with Thor and I, you know, I don't know. We'll get into some other things later that we've talked about in some of our other podcasts. But with truth be told, it's just that music that we have in common. And I've even sat down for a couple of lessons with him, and boy,
Yeah,
were they interesting. But
Oh.
you know what I mean. But we in a very good way.
yeah,
But with we get along very well because we have that in common. It's the music, and we have a lot of really good friends who we work with in our the music store that we work in, and it's like we're like brothers and sisters.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's beautiful.
Well,
That is
there's
that's
definitely like a
beautiful.
common ground, because I mean, obviously, I've lived in the town of Chico for quite a while, and I know a lot of the musicians here, and a lot of them are very different from me. And some of them are very similar, but some of them are just vastly different. And I get along really well with all of them, and I
Yeah,
interact with them regularly because we play music together. So it really does bring people together.
it
Um,
surely does. It surely
so
does.
Nolan, I think we have one more. So we're almost out of time, but we have one more question that we'd really like to ask you. So I think Missy, this is
So
Okay.
yeah,
yours.
so I'll
Yeah.
take it away. So we'll just I just wanted to know, like, so what do you do in your spare time when you're not in the music studio? What do you like to do?
Running, right?
Yeah, I never have spare time. I enjoy running, so
Yes.
I coach kids running,
Okay.
and I practice my trumpet. Now, not a lot, but I practice at least I practice about 4 hours a day,
Yes.
and then I record every day in the studio. So I do exactly what I love doing. I mean, I love my life. It's a beautiful life. So I don't have any spare time, and I don't know how to deal with spare time. Uh, if a day goes by and I don't have a recording session, I get fidgety. I don't know really what to do. So I just practice more.
So it
You know,
sounds like even if you had spare time, you wouldn't know what to do with it. Is that true?
right? Yeah, I just practice
Yeah,
longer.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so yeah.
Well, Thor
Do you have
Thor
that problem or
well, Thor and I think kind of well, yeah, a little bit. Like I don't have
you have
any
your real estate also?
yes, I mean,
Yeah.
I have a real estate. I also like to run too, and that's where I
I,
do a lot of my thinking. And then I teach a little bit of piano, and and of course I have to keep up my skill by practicing. So yeah, like when do we have spare time? Um
right.
Yeah. None of us do. Yeah.
but anyways, well, Nolan, it was such a pleasure having you on our podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, likewise,
Well,
Nolan.
thank you.
Yeah, and we really appreciate you putting in your time, and we know you're very busy just from hearing what you had to say just a minute ago. So we really appreciate you, letting us borrow some of your time and just for sharing your a little bit about your background. So it was really nice meeting you, and I
Yes.
hope maybe one day I can even meet you in person too. So
That would be wonderful. That would
yeah,
be wonderful.
Well,
okay,
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
you are welcome,
you're
Nolan. You
welcome.
have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.
All right. So what did you think of that?
I thought that was
That was pretty
wonderful.
cool. So,
Yes.
okay, I have a question.
Yes.
How do you I know we're almost out of time, but
Mhm.
how do you know him?
I know him through a friend who is a runner who also has another world record holder,
Yeah.
and he's in real estate, and so he knew about my podcast. He's like, "Oh, why don't you talk to this Nolan Shaheed guy?" He
Yeah.
also has a world record as well in track, and
Yeah.
s- and so here we go. And I gave him I called him up, and here we are. So yeah,
Yeah.
he's just like an amazing musician, and I just totally respect everything he's done. He is definitely someone um,
Well, and and
be
one thing
respected.
I think you guys noticed too is he talked a lot, which is actually good. That's not a
Yes, I love
criticism.
it.
You can tell he really loves what he does.
Very passionate
And
about music.
yeah, he's very passionate and you heard him just talk and talk. He could have gone this whole half hour on just one question, to be honest.
Yes, yes.
And again, this is not like a oh, he talks too much. This is like a sign of somebody that loves what he does. And when I asked him or when you asked him, what do you do on your spare time? His response was like spare time, pff, you know. But it wasn't, the way that I interpreted that wasn't like, "Oh, darn it, I don't have any spare time because I'm too busy." It was like, "I love doing what I do so much that why would I bother having spare time when I can just do what I love all the time?"
Yeah, he is definitely an individual who values music. He values the
Yeah.
musicianship that he has. He spends time practicing, and like we have talked about in some of our podcasts. So
Yeah.
hopefully, some of you out there who are kind of like, oh, well, what, they're kind of him hawing about practicing their instrument. We hope that this encourages you and inspires you to sit down at your instrument and play.
Yeah, well, and this is the other thing too, and I know we're
Yes,
at 8:04, it's okay.
yes,
We can ramble a little bit for
okay,
5 minutes or
yes,
4
and
minutes,
then
5 minutes.
yes.
Is like so I don't know if you remember, but early in the podcast, this particular broadcast, he
Mhm.
said he had actually taken some violin lessons recently,
Yes, yes,
which kinda piqued my interest because I did that, and I am doing that as we speak. Um, and if you remember, he said that he kinda steered away from that and went to trumpet instead. So why do you think he did that? I have an idea, but why do you think? I know I'm always putting people on the spot. That's what I do when I'm a teacher. It's like,
well,
what do you
I think I've never really heard of a jazz violinist. And it seems like
Right.
jazz was more of a genre he was more,
Yes. Yeah.
connected with, so I think maybe the violin, he kind of
Mhm.
felt that as a musician, like,
Uh-huh.
maybe he knew he had a passion for music, but maybe
Yeah.
that wasn't the right
Yeah.
he wasn't in the right like, with the right instrument at the time.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's also because, I've also heard people say this, like, I've actually mentioned this in another podcast. Some people gravitate towards a different instrument. I've seen that. I've seen, people, like, they just like, "Well, I like piano, but I love the sound of a cello. I just love it." And they
Mhm,
can't explain it. They could be 7 years old,
mhm.
and they just gravitate towards a different sound, and I think that's what happened with Mr. Shaheed is he took some violin lesson, and he's like, "Meh," but he heard the trumpet, and he was like, "Oh my god, can I learn that?" And, I have, family members, I won't mention who, but I have a very small family, but one of them, I think really gravitated towards the guitar because he loved the way the guitar sounds. I had one student who took lessons with me for a while, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, I get it," and he got pretty good, but he wasn't, like, gung ho about it. And then he went to saxophone, and now he's like a great saxophonist. So I think some people gravitate towards a different instrument. And like I said, I think Nolan gravitated towards trumpet.
Yes.
And that's just sometimes that's what happens. So if there's a instrument that speaks to you, putting it in quotes, because if it's really speaking to you, you have other issues. But
Exactly.
but if there's a sound that really speaks to you, you should pursue it.
Yes, I know with my daughter when she said
Yeah.
she didn't wanna take piano anymore, but she wanted to
Took violin,
take, no,
or
this is my other
I'm
one.
sorry.
She wanted to go to yeah, my first one played the violin, but my other one was taking piano, and then she jumped, ship, and she
Yeah.
wanted to play the guitar,
Yeah.
and she
Yeah.
really took off with it, and she still plays
Yeah.
it to this day, so
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, for example, if you love the sound of a flute, take flute lessons, try it,
yes.
see what happens. Because for me, the weird thing is like, what was that?
Oh, it's just a notification.
Oh, from your
Just
computer?
yeah, it's
Okay, I'm like,
okay.
what is that? Is that somebody walking in the door? There was like a beeping sound, like aliens are coming and invading. Anyway,
No, that was your computer the other week, but go
oh
on.
right, yeah, it was. And so yeah, so what was I gonna say? So I play the violin, but I was attracted to the sound of the piano.
Mhm.
And I just got addicted to it. So that's another example. And there was I'll say one more thing, and then you can say whatever you
Okay,
want if you want.
then we'll say more.
There is a very famous violinist named Hilary Hahn, who is a world touring, world renowned violinist who tours the world and plays. And I watched a YouTube video of hers, and she was playing something by Bach, and she was like, "This is a song by Bach. I'm going to play it." And she's like playing this really beautiful Bach piece, and in the background was a piano, and the piano was like covered up, like she doesn't really use it. And I'm sure she probably plays a little bit. I don't
Mhm.
know, but that's an example. She prefers a violin. If I was in that same room, I'd put the violin down and go to the piano and be playing that for 5 hours. So
Yes.
people are driven, or not driven, are gravitated,
Gravitated,
yeah,
yes,
towards different instruments. So
exactly.
I thought that was interesting. So
Cool,
okay,
yes.
anything else you want to?
Well, anyways, yeah, I really enjoyed, our podcast today and
Yeah,
having a guest speaker on.
yeah.
Um, and if you, out there, any of our, wonderful, subscribers or anybody who's watching, if you have an idea on who you'd like to see on our podcast, please comment in the comment section on who you'd like to see
Or if you
on this
want to
podcast.
be in our podcast, you can just comment. As long as it's music related,
Yes, yes,
we have a
exactly.
very arduous screening process. You have
Yes.
you have to be a decent human being, which I know is, you know, so
Yes, or if you know anybody, but, at the same time too, we thank you for tuning in and watching us, and then if you are not a subscriber, please subscribe, it's free, and, anyways, are
yeah.
we ready to say goodbye?
I'm ready to say goodbye. And again, the
Okay.
name of our guest tonight was Nolan Shaheed. You can look him up. You can Google him, and
Yes.
I saw him on Wikipedia because I was trying to find out more about him. So yeah,
Yeah.
look him up. And thank you so much for watching. So
Yes, thank
thank
you.
you. And are you doing this, or am I?
You are.
Oh, am I?
Bye,
I
everybody.
might
Thank you
trip
for
over.
tuning in.